Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out which tube gap should you mind the most.
On the tube, there's 3 famous rules. Stand on the right, let people off before you get on, and mind the gap. In some places, there's not much of a gap to mind, and in others, the gap is bigger than a London studio apartment. In 2024, there are exactly 1,893 gap incidents. So which gaps should you be minding the most?
Wait a minute, how many gap incidents?
In 2024, there are exactly 1,893 gap incidents. So which...
Are people falling in the gap? Y'all, mind the gap. It's written on the floor. In America, we don't have mind the gap. People don't say it. It's not a thing. Something we do have, but people don't follow, is let people off first before you get on. Let people off first before you get on. My fellow Americans, please, please, let me get off. You know what I mean. Also, stand to the right. Yeah, get out of the way. I want to walk up the steps. I want to walk down the steps, escalator, whatever. Get out of the way. Make way. Get out of my way. I'm surprised that there's that much discrepancy in gap size. That's what y'all be sure to go to Luke O'Sullivan and like and subscribe.
Well, today I am here to fill this gap in your knowledge with this mindful exploration of some of the tube's most notable gaps. We are going to dive into each of these gaps figuratively and rate them using my absolutely rock-solid gap rating system that stands for gap width, altitude, and peril. For each of these categories, they'll get a score out of 5, adding up to a total possible score of 15.
Okay. Let's go. I like how he made the scoring the word gap. Luke, very nice. Peril. What does he mean by peril? Like what could happen to you if you don't mind the gap, maybe? I think that's what he means.
Let's go.
Let's go. Embankment.
Our first gap today is here at Embankment's Northern Line platforms, which is more notable for that than anything else.
Mind the gap.
Gaps have always been inevitable on the tube. It's an old system, it twists, it turns, and where curved platforms meet straight trains, you get a gap.
I was gonna say, I've never seen a curved platform. Every subway station that I've been on is straight. That's why there's a gap. Okay.
One of the ways they make the gap safer is by announcing the gap, and one of the first recorded announcements was by a man called Oswald Lawrence, who was a theatre actor. He recorded his announcements in the late 60s, and over the years they got replaced. When he died, his wife asked Transport for London for the recordings, and they did her one better. They restored the recording only here at Embankment on the Northern Line platforms, and you can still hear it today.
Mind the gap.
I've heard that story before. I don't remember what the video was. But yeah, I heard about his widow and his death. I don't think that would happen in America. We wouldn't do that. Why replace it, though, in the first place? It's perfectly pronounced. Mind the gap. How can you make that better? Right?
Okay, time for the gap rating. The gap is 22 centimeters at its widest, so not mega. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5.
Y'all, Luke went and measured these gaps. Give him a like and subscribe. Go to Luke O'Sullivan, give him a like and subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and like this video just because he measured the gap. People must have seen him doing this and thought he was a crazy, crazy OCD, ADHD, all the letters, all the personality disorders guy. But he did it anyway. He doesn't give a what people think.
So not mega. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5.
Okay.
Altitude, not a huge step. I'm going to go 3 out of 5.
Okay.
Peril, I don't think it's that dangerous. I'm going to be harsh. 2 out of 5. That gives us a total gap score of 7 out of 15.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a bonus point for filling a gap in my heart. That gives us a score of 8 out of 15. Moving on.
Story.
Our second gap is here at Willesden Junction. But it's less of a gap and more of a step. See, there are
Oh,
many
no.
gaps on the tube. Small ones, wide ones, low ones, tall ones. This one is shared with the overground.
Yo, okay. I've never been on a train and there's a step up or down. That seems dangerous. No wonder they have to say mind the gap. For the elderly or the less able-bodied people, right? That seems dangerous. Why not raise or lower the track a little bit? Or raise or lower the platform a little bit? Why'd they let that happen? I don't know.
Ones, low ones, tall ones. This one is shared with the overground. Overground trains high up, tube trains low down. They didn't want a massive step, so they put the platform at a compromise height. The only problem being that there is then no step-free access to any service.
Okay, he just answered my question, or the concern that I had right before that. They have different trains going on these tracks. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so gap rating. For the Bakerloo line at the rear of the southbound platform, the gap's got to be about 30 centimetres wide. I'm going to say that's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
4 out of 5.
Okay,
Altitude's got to be around 20 centimetres below platform level, which is really unusual. I'm going to give that a 5 out of 5. As for peril, not many doors have a massive, massive gap width, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
That's a high
Definitely
score.
watch a step, though.
Yeah.
That gives us a total gap score of 13 out of 15.
That might
Before
be
we
the
move
winner.
on, when they first introduced automatic train doors on the tube, they used to leave certain doors shut where there was going to be a massive gap. But this caused loads of confusion and congestion, so they ended up just embracing the gap. Moving on. Baker Street's gaps are less like gaps, and more like chasms that people should
Whoa.
be studying in geography.
That's
We're
a
at
big
the
gap.
rear end of the northbound Metropolitan Line platform, and before I did my research, I thought this was the biggest gap on the tube. And it's close. I have had bonding moments with commuters over these gaps. I don't know if it comes across quite how big the gap is, but... And it actually recently got wider, ironically in an attempt to
Wow.
make it more accessible. Unlike the old trains, these ones have step-free access, but in order to do that, they needed to move the trains slightly further away from the station so it didn't scrape its way along as it came in. So less of a step, more of a gap. I think it's a good trade-off. Okay, so the gap
Guess so.
rating, TfL actually lists the gap at 36 centimetres. Worst are the middle and rear doors. I'm going to give
That's
that
a 5.
5 out of 5.
Yeah.
In terms of
Yeah.
gap altitude, there is no step, so I'm going to give that 1 out of 5. But peril, this is the most perilous platform on the whole of the London Underground network. There are 160 gap-related incidents in 2024 alone. That's got to be a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
That's 11 out of 15.
Okay.
Mind the gap.
Yo, that's a gap. Look at that gap. That's what he's... When I ride the train, I don't even think about the gap. Every American should watch this before you go to London. You should watch this. This is important. You gotta mind that gap.
But here, my friends, is some gap goss. You see, at the other end of the same platform, you have this big gap on one side because the platform was too skinny for it to be safe to have people boarding on both sides in case people fell over. The trains only stop here. They don't use the end of the platform. But TfL are changing this. They're moving the stopping point of the trains right down to the end and making some changes so it's safer down this end. And that should mean that less of the train stops on the gap at the backside of the platform. Once
wow.
that is adjusted, Piccadilly Circus will take Baker Street's place in the leaderboard. But before I tell you what number 1 is...
Hang on. I gotta back this up. Look how thin that... Oh my gosh, yeah. Right there. Yeah. You might throw somebody on the tracks by accident, just by trying to get by. Like during rush hour? That'd be pretty easy to fall on the tracks.
in case people fell over. Once that is adjusted, Piccadilly Circus will take Baker Street's place in the leaderboard. But before I tell you what number 1 is, I've got some honourable mentions to make.
Okay.
The first is Mansion House, Circle and District Line, eastbound. 25 centimetres wide, but with level access.
Okay.
Gonna say it's not hugely perilous, but definitely worth a shout out. 7 out of 15.
Okay. It's
The
not
other
bad.
one is the southbound Bakerloo line platforms here at Waterloo. 25 centimetres, and a step. Very perilous. There's not even a guard. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 15.
Okay.
So, what would get us a perfect 15 out of 15? Well, welcome to Bank, the creme de la creme of gaps. When I was getting off the train, two girls were trying to get over the gap in roller skates. I didn't film because, like, danger. The platforms here are bent because they had to build around the Bank of England's foundations. They also wanted the platforms to be as close to the heart of the City of London as possible. It looks pretty cool though. The whole rest of the station recently had an upgrade, making it step-free and nice and spacious. Not the central line though, where engineers decided that was not possible. So, the moment you've been waiting for, let's go in for our final gap rating.
Okay.
Gap width here, at Baker Street it was 36, here is 38, that is a mega gap, 5 out of 5. Gap altitude, this one is a massive step. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. As for peril, I can't lie, it looks pretty dangerous, especially in roller skates. Also, it's so loud that might damage your hearing. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. That's a full 15 out of 15. This is officially the gappiest gap in London. Consider it minded. Feel free to correct me in the comments. I'm going to go find some aircon.
Wow. Show me all the map. London. Bank. If I just type in bank, Bank of England? Right down there in the middle. Where's the tube bank station? There it is. Is that it? I think that's it, y'all. I mean, you gotta admit that looks cool. It's like a sci-fi movie.
Perdidinha aqui no metrô de Londres. É muita saída.
That's a cool looking. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Oh, wow. Wow. It's very nice, actually. Very nice tube station. I'm surprised at the gap. Or I'm surprised at all of these gaps. I like how they kept the rounded shape of it and didn't try to build like a square interior inside of the tunnel. Even the escalator area is a literal tube. Look at that gap. I am surprised at these gaps, y'all. Y'all mind that gap. No. Look at that gap. Why don't we have gaps like that? It's not a thing here. Maybe London, I know London had like one of the first undergrounds, right? Maybe the first? I think it was the first. Hang on. Where was the first subway? London. Yeah. So probably to retrofit that would be a whole other thing. And then the trains have changed. Oh, 1863 in London. Yeah, 1863. Wow. In the U.S., 1897 in Boston, and 1904 in New York City. When was the Los Angeles? When was Los Angeles subway built? 1925. Well, yeah. 80 years later. I'm surprised at these gaps. I don't know how many more times I can say it. I'm surprised at these gaps. Y'all be sure to go to Luke O'Sullivan and like and subscribe. I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.